The cold wind howled through the broken buildings of Colony 7, carrying the distant roars of the stalkers. Lily pressed herself against the crumbling wall, her breath forming small clouds in the chilly air. Her purple skin, usually bright and healthy, had turned pale from months of hiding in shadows. The tattered remains of her environmental suit beeped softly, warning of another power cell failure. 3 months had passed since the last transmission from any of her people. 3 months of running, hiding, and watching the massive beasts tear through their once beautiful colony. The stalkers, with their 6 legs and armored hides, had appeared from the ancient underground facilities without warning. These weren't natural creatures. Their metallic implants and glowing eyes showed they were weapons from a forgotten war. Lily checked her food pouch. 2 nutrition bars remained, barely enough for another day. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. The sound of heavy footsteps made her freeze. A stalker was moving through the street below, its claws clicking against the broken pavement. The beast stood twice as tall as her, its long neck sweeping back and forth as it searched for prey. She held her breath. The creature's enhanced senses could detect the slightest movement. Its black scales absorbed the dim light of the setting sun, making it look like a moving shadow. The neural implants along its spine pulsed with a sickly green light. The stalker paused, lifting its head to taste the air. Lily's heart pounded so hard she feared the beast would hear them. A piece of debris shifted under her foot, making a tiny sound that seemed to echo in the silence. The creature's head snapped toward her hiding spot. Its 6 red eyes locked onto the shadows where she hid. Lily didn't hesitate. She ran. Her feet barely touched the ground as she sprinted across the rooftop. Behind her, the stalker let out a piercing shriek that would bring others to the hunt. Lily jumped across the gap between buildings, her lighter gravity making the leap possible. The stalker crashed through the wall below, sending debris flying as it pursued her. She activated her last working piece of technology, a personal shield generator that could deflect 1, maybe 2 hits from their claws. The chase led her through the ruins of her people's last colony, past the broken dome of the Central Park where she used to watch the twin moons rise, through the remains of the learning center where she had studied the history of their peaceful civilization. Every corner held memories of what they had lost. A second stalker appeared ahead, cutting off her escape route. Lily skidded to a stop, her heart's racing as she looked for another way out. The beasts moved with terrible coordination, herding her toward a dead end. Their implants glowed brighter, sharing information between them as they closed in for the kill. Lily backed against a wall, her shield humming as it prepared for impact. She wasn't a warrior. Her people had given up fighting long ago. But as she faced the approaching stalkers, she felt a strange calm. If this was her end, she would meet it standing as the last of her kind. The ground suddenly trembled. A bright light cut through the darkness above, and a strange roaring sound filled the air. The stalkers looked up, momentarily distracted. Through the clouds, something was falling, trailing fire and smoke. Lily watched in amazement as the object, some kind of ship she had never seen before, crashed into the industrial sector with a tremendous explosion. The stalkers turned toward the crash site, their programming drawing them to investigate the new threat. Lily remained motionless until they disappeared into the darkness. Only then did she allow herself to breathe again. Whatever had just crashed might mean her death, but after months of lonely survival, even that seemed better than waiting to be hunted down. With careful steps, she began moving toward the crash site. Unknown to her, this moment would change everything. Not just for her, but for all the lost souls of Colony 7. The crash site glowed in the darkness. Pieces of the strange ship scattered across the industrial sector. Lily moved carefully between the twisted metal fragments, her curiosity fighting with her fear. The ship's design was unlike anything she had seen before, angular and practical, without the flowing lines of her people's vessels. A sound caught her attention, not the heavy footsteps of stalkers, but something lighter, moving, alive. She crouched behind a fallen wall panel and watched as a figure emerged from the wreckage. It walked on two legs, like her people, but that's where the similarities ended. The creature wore thick clothes in dark colors, and its skin was a shade she had never seen before. It moved with purpose, checking its surroundings and pulling equipment from the crashed ship. Despite its obvious injuries, she could see blood on its arm. It worked quickly and efficiently. The being, she would later learn it was called a human, began gathering materials from the wreck. It pulled out pieces of metal, fabric, and strange tools, arranging them with clear purpose. Within minutes, it had created a small shelter against a standing wall, hidden from immediate view. Lily watched in amazement as the human made fire using nothing but pieces of debris. No technology, no power cells, just careful movements with simple tools. The flames cast dancing shadows, but instead of making the human more visible, they seemed to help it blend into the darkness. A distant roar made both of them freeze. The stalkers were coming to investigate the crash. The human quickly kicked dirt over the fire, dimming it but not extinguishing it completely. Lily wanted to warn them. A partially hidden fire was worse than none at all. The beasts would smell it. The first stalker appeared at the edge of the crash site, its neural implants pulsing with excitement at finding new prey. The human didn't run. Instead, it pulled out a long metal tool from its belt and waited. Lily wanted to shout, to tell them that simple weapons couldn't pierce a stalker's hide. The beast charged. The human aimed the tool, and a loud crack split the air. The stalker stumbled as something hit its eye, causing it to crash into a pile of debris. It wasn't dead, but it was hurt, something Lily had never seen before. Two more stalkers appeared, moving to surround the human. The stranger backed toward a narrow gap between fallen buildings, a tactical move that would force the beasts to come one at a time. Another crack from the weapon. Another hit. The human wasn't trying to kill them, Lily realized. It was buying time, leading them away from its shelter. Without thinking, Lily activated her shield generator and stepped out of hiding. The sound drew the stalker's attention, giving the human an opening to retreat. Their eyes met across the battlefield, her 4 green eyes looking into the human's 2 brown ones. In that moment, something passed between them. Recognition of another survivor, another soul fighting against impossible odds. The human nodded once, then threw something small and round toward the stalkers. A blinding flash erupted, confused the beast's sensitive eyes. By the time Lily could see again, the human had vanished into the ruins, leaving her to wonder if she had just made a terrible mistake or found her first real hope of survival. Dawn broke over Colony 7, casting long shadows through the ruins. Lily hadn't slept, her mind replaying the strange encounter with the human. The sound of movement made her tense, but it wasn't the heavy stride of a stalker. The human was back, examining tracks in the dirt with careful attention. Lily watched from her hiding spot as the human worked. They had created basic tools from the ship's wreckage. A spear with a sharpened metal tip, a bag made from seat material, and what looked like crude armor strapped to their chest and arms. The human moved differently from her people, each step placed with purpose, body always ready to react. A screech echoed through the ruins, not a stalker's call, but something smaller, one of the scavenger beasts that followed in the stalker's wake. The human didn't run or hide. Instead, they crouched, becoming nearly invisible among the debris. Lily saw why as 3 dog-sized creatures rounded the corner, sniffing for food. The human spear flew with shocking speed, taking down the first creature instantly. The others turned to flee, but the human had already moved, a smaller blade finding its mark in the second beast. The third escaped, but the human didn't seem concerned. Instead, they began cleaning their kills with practiced movements. The efficiency of the hunt amazed Lily. Her people had always relied on processed food and technology. This human had found a way to survive using just their hands and simple tools. As she watched them work, a stalker's roar shattered the morning calm, much closer than expected. The human looked up, but it was too late. The beast burst through a collapsed wall, its claws aimed at the human's back. Without thinking, Lily activated her shield generator and jumped. The barrier flared as she knocked the human aside, the stalker's claws scraping harmlessly against the energy field. They rolled together behind a broken pillar, the human's eyes wide with surprise but focused. They pointed to themselves, then to the left, then to Lily and the right. Even without words, the meaning was clear. Split up, divide the beast's attention. The plan worked perfectly. As Lily ran right, shield glowing, the stalker turned to follow. The human used that moment to attack from behind, jamming a metal rod into the creature's neural implants. The beast convulsed as its control systems overloaded, crashing to the ground. For a long moment, they stared at each other over the fallen stalker. Then the human smiled, a strange expression Lily had never seen before, and pulled out a small device from their pocket. It projected a holographic image of Earth letters, which rearranged themselves until they spelled out Freyend. Lily understood. She drew letters in the dirt with her finger. Yes. The human nodded and began gathering their hunting tools. They pointed to the dead scavenger beasts, then to their mouth, then to Lily. The message was clear. They would share their food. But first, they needed to move. Other stalkers would come to investigate their fallen pack member. As they walked away together, Lily realized something had fundamentally changed. She was no longer alone in her fight for survival. And maybe, just maybe, this strange human knew things that could help her reclaim her world. The human shelter had become their shared home, hidden cleverly between fallen buildings. Lily watched as Jack, she had learned his name through simple drawings, stripped bark from a flexible branch. His hands moved with practiced ease, turning the wood into a deadly hunting bow. For someone whose species relied so heavily on technology, his skill with basic materials amazed her. "Watch," he said, though she couldn't understand the word. He pointed to his eyes, then demonstrated how to test the bow's flexibility. Lily copied his movements, her four-fingered hands awkward at first, but quickly adapting. When she successfully strung her first bow, Jack's approving nod needed no translation. Their days fell into a pattern. Each morning, they would check their perimeter for stalker signs. Jack had taught her to read the ground, broken twigs, disturbed dust, the direction of scattered pebbles. Her enhanced vision helped spot details his human eyes missed, while his experience helped make sense of what they found. Today, they tracked a herd of six-legged herbivores through the ruins. These creatures weren't dangerous like the stalkers, but they were fast and alert. Jack showed her how to move with the wind, keeping their scent away from their prey. When Lily's foot caused a small sound, he instantly froze, teaching her that stillness was sometimes better than silence. The moment of the kill was clean and quick. Lily's arrow, guided by Jack's lessons, found its mark. As they approached their fallen prey, Jack showed her how to honor the creature's death with a small gesture, touching its head and nodding solemnly. She didn't understand the ritual's meaning, but its importance to him was clear. While they worked to clean their kill, a distant roar made them both look up. A stalker, but far away. Jack pointed to the neural implants they had collected from their previous encounters. Through drawings and gestures, they had discovered that these implants formed a network. When one stalker found prey, others would come. But Jack had a plan. He pulled out pieces of scrap metal and began fashioning crude but effective traps. Lily's technical knowledge helped identify which parts of the stalkers were vulnerable. Together, they were creating something neither could have managed alone, a way to fight back. As the twin suns set, they carried their meat back to the shelter. Jack had shown her how to smoke it for preservation, another simple but invaluable skill. While they worked, Lily caught him watching the stars. She recognized the look. He was thinking of home, just as she often did. But unlike her, he had chosen to be here, to explore unknown worlds. His courage gave her strength. That night, as they sat by their carefully hidden fire, Lily realized she was no longer just surviving. She was learning, growing stronger. Jack's presence had changed everything. Where she once saw only danger in her ruined world, she now saw resources and possibilities. The human had taught her more than just hunting. He had taught her hope. The discovery came during their morning patrol. Jack stopped suddenly, pointing at unusual markings on a fallen wall. Lily studied them. These weren't regular stalker tracks. They were deeper, wider, made by something much larger. Using sticks in the dirt, they pieced together what they'd found. Regular stalkers always moved in groups of 3 to 5. But these tracks showed a pack of 12, all following one massive set of prints. Jack drew a simple picture, many smaller creatures following a larger one. A leader, an alpha. Lily's eyes widened as she understood. Pulling out a damaged data tablet, she showed Jack archived images of the stalker's neural implants. Each one pulsed with the same pattern, synchronized. The alpha must be controlling them, coordinating their attacks through some kind of biological network. Their shelter's wall became a planning board. Jack mapped out the stalker's hunting patterns, while Lily marked the locations of destroyed sensor arrays. The patterns overlapped at one point, the Crystal Valleys, where ancient defense systems still hummed with power. The Alpha wasn't just hiding there, it was using the old technology. As they planned, a familiar screech echoed through the ruins. But this time it was different, deeper, more commanding. Through a broken window, they saw it. The Alpha was twice the size of regular stalkers, its neural implants glowing bright enough to light the ground beneath it. A dozen normal stalkers flanked it, moving with perfect coordination. Jack pulled Lily down as the Alpha's head turned their way. Its sensory capabilities were clearly enhanced. The regular stalkers were dangerous, but this creature was something else entirely. Its implants didn't just connect to the network, they controlled it. When the pack passed, they returned to their planning. If they could destroy the Alpha's control module, the entire stalker network would collapse. But reaching it meant crossing the Crystal Valleys, a maze of active defense systems and concentrated stalker patrols. Lily demonstrated with her failing shield generator how the old defenses worked. Jack showed how they could use the terrain to their advantage. Alone, neither of them could have attempted this. But together, combining her knowledge of the colony's technology with his survival skills, they had a chance. That night, as they prepared their weapons and supplies, Lily caught Jack staring at the stars again. But this time, he wasn't looking toward his home. He was studying the path they would take tomorrow, into the Crystal Valleys. His determination gave her strength. Tomorrow, they would begin their most dangerous journey yet. The Alpha's distant roar shook the ground, a reminder of what they faced. But Lily wasn't afraid anymore. The human had taught her that having a plan, a purpose, was stronger than fear. The Crystal Valleys lived up to their name. Broken shards of ancient construction material jutted from the ground like teeth, reflecting the morning light in blinding flashes. Jack and Lily moved carefully between the crystal formations, their footsteps muffled by years of settled dust. Old defense turrets tracked their movement with faint whirring sounds. Lily's knowledge proved invaluable here. She knew their blind spots, the patterns in their scanning. Jack followed her lead, timing their advances between the mechanical suites. When they couldn't avoid a turret's view, Lily's shield generator created brief windows of safety. They discovered signs of the Alpha's presence everywhere. Deep claw marks on the crystals, broken equipment that had been deliberately destroyed rather than just abandoned. The beast was intelligent, systematically removing anything that could be used against it. Halfway through the valley, they found themselves trapped between two patrol groups of stalkers. Jack quickly pulled Lily into a narrow crevice, their bodies pressed close as the creatures passed. Even their breathing could give them away. Lily watched in amazement as Jack remained perfectly still, his heart rate barely elevated despite the danger. The next challenge came at a broken bridge spanning a deep ravine. The gap was too wide to jump, even for Lily's lighter frame. Jack studied the crystal formations, then began teaching her to climb using rough rope he'd made from stripped vines. They crossed the gap slowly, hanging from the rope, while crystal shards threatened to cut through at any moment. A sudden tremor shook the valley. The Alpha was near, its heavy footsteps causing miniature avalanches of crystal fragments. They took shelter in an old maintenance tunnel, watching through gaps as the massive creature passed. Its neural implants pulsed with power, making nearby crystals resonate in harmony. That night, hidden in the tunnel, they shared their last rations. Jack showed Lily how to find water condensed on the cool crystal surfaces. She showed him how to read the old maintenance markings, guiding them closer to their goal. Neither needed words to understand they were close to their target. As they rested, a small pack of scavenger beasts discovered their hideout. Instead of running, Jack taught Lily to stand her ground. Together, they fought back to back, his spear and her energy shield creating a perfect defense. When it was over, both realized how far they'd come. No longer just survivors, but warriors. Dawn approached, and with it their final push toward the Alpha's den. Jack checked their weapons one last time while Lily monitored the defense grid's patterns. Tomorrow would determine everything, not just their survival, but the future of the entire colony. The Alpha's den lay at the heart of the Crystal Valleys, surrounded by pulsing ancient machinery. Jack and Lily crouched behind a broken control panel, watching the massive beast pace. Its neural implants glowed brighter here, drawing power from the old systems that still functioned. Scattered around the den lay the remains of previous hunters, both mechanical and organic. The Alpha hadn't just survived here. It had made this place a fortress. Regular stalkers patrolled in tight formations, their movements perfectly synchronized through the Alpha's control. Jack pointed to the largest neural implant on the Alpha's spine, their target. Lily nodded, understanding the plan. Her shield generator had just enough power for one last use. Jack's remaining arrows were tipped with fragments from destroyed stalker implants, designed to disrupt the control network. They split up, moving to opposite sides of the den. Lily activated an old maintenance drone, sending it skating across the ground. The distraction worked. The Alpha's head snapped toward the movement, its guards moving to investigate. Jack took his shot. The arrow struck true, embedding in a secondary implant. The Alpha roared, its control over the pack wavering. Some stalkers stopped moving, others began attacking each other in confusion. But the main control implant remained intact. The Alpha charged toward Jack's position, its massive claws leaving deep gouges in the crystal floor. This was their one chance. Lily jumped from her hiding spot, shield generator flaring to life. She landed on the Alpha's back, fingers gripping the neural implants for balance. The beast thrashed, trying to throw her off. Jack kept firing arrows, keeping the remaining stalkers at bay. Lily pulled out their last weapon, a crude explosive made from crashed ship parts. She jammed it deep into the Alpha's main implant and activated it. The blast threw her clear. Jack caught her, pulling them both behind a crystal formation as the Alpha screamed. Its neural network overloaded, sending cascading failures through all connected stalkers. One by one, the beasts fell, their controlling intelligence shattered. When the dust settled, Lily and Jack emerged to see their victory. The Alpha lay motionless, its implants dark. Around the valley, stalkers were collapsing. Their coordinated threat ended. Lily looked at the destruction, then at Jack. Without words, she understood what he'd helped her achieve. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was a beginning. With the stalkers gone, others of her kind might return. The colony could live again. Jack gathered their remaining supplies, preparing for the journey back. But Lily knew he wouldn't leave, not yet. There was more work to do. Together, they had proved that the most advanced technology wasn't always the answer. Sometimes hope came in simpler forms, like a human's courage, and the strength found in friendship. The twin suns rose over the crystal valleys, lighting a world that finally held promise again.